Welcome everyone to the CXO Tech Summit and Awards. And the topic which we'll be covering with my fellow panelists from the industry, Mr. Anuj Tewari from TMF Group, Mr. Rajat Goel, Mr. Vijay Murthy from Capgemini, Mr. Gurumurthy and Mr. Sreeni from healthcare, he will be covering the healthcare industry. So there is a research which says that most of the companies are now moving towards SASE technology. I hope that you all know that there was a research done by Gartner in 2019 that the companies are moving on SASE technology. And after that, there were another research which says that people are a bit slow, but during pandemic, things have changed and companies had started moving. And now you'll be surprised to know almost 52% of companies globally have now shifted to SASE technologies. So my point here will be that each one of you can throw some light that how does SASE fits in the current cybersecurity scenario. So Mr. Anuj Tiwari, if you can take the question first.
Sure. Thank you, Vinay. See, SASE, I think, has been talked about for quite some while now. You also talked about Gartner coding it for quite some time. And I think it came around in 2019, if memory serves me right. And 4 years hence, we are kind of dangling with the adoption of it. In my opinion, I think there has been a large acceleration in adoption of SASE technology, especially ever since we saw COVID hit. And I would probably say the primary driver possibly was the remote workforce. So as our workforce is getting dispersed and the traditional concept of defense in depth is going away, as in you can't really put a perimeter around a user, a physical machine or a data center as much as we were able to do it in the past. It really has pivoted from a network security standpoint, which in my opinion, really what the heart and root of a SASE technology is, isn't it? So essentially the ability to converge a software-defined network and ability to look at converged capabilities like data loss prevention, proxy, and making sure that all the subnets and the infrastructure is behind, and essentially you don't need to expose anything off to the internet is something that has helped adopt SASE and reduce the attack surface. I'll take a pause here.
Okay. Now my question would be for Mr. Sreeni Venugopal can talk about how health industry is taking SASE.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. So I'm Sreeni Venugopal, and I work at Kimshealth, where I'm the group CIO and CISO. As Anuj was saying, it is a convergence of both network management as well as security. So in my role, I'm responsible for both. So I see a bit of this happening. If I talk about it from a business context, right? One part was the fact that during COVID, there was an accelerated movement towards remote working or work from anywhere, which necessitated that we needed to have stricter controls on both networking as well as security when remote workforce was connecting into our corporate applications. The other thing that I also see in healthcare is an acceleration towards cloud. Over the years, there has been a feeling that patient data or medical data cannot be put on the cloud for regulatory reasons, but that is not entirely true. So as a hospital, we are currently looking at moving more and more of our applications, our hospital information system to the cloud. And that combined with a lot of the IoT devices that we are deploying in patient locations, all of this means that now the edge that connects into a network is very, very spread. And if we try to have different solutions for networking and for security, it becomes extremely difficult for us to manage two separate teams, two set of tools, which are not well integrated together. So in my perspective, I see SASE having that space within the security landscape where you are able to combine both the networking management piece as well as the security piece, and give the flexibility to our workforce, both our doctors, clinicians, as well as our IT staff, to be able to connect from anywhere, access our corporate applications, and yet be able to maintain the security levels that we would maintain if we are sitting in our own data center. And that is where I see SASE positioned, especially from a healthcare industry.
And if I have to say that now everyone can work from home very easily because of this. But do you agree with this point? Because I can sense from Anuj sir's and your conversation that this is more secure than anything else, because now you are combining network and security together, wherein it was difficult earlier. Do you agree, Anuj sir, with this? Sreeni sir?
Go ahead, Sreeni.
Yeah, I will just say that the industry I work in is a bit different, because delivery of healthcare usually is best performed when the patient and the doctor are sitting across each other. Having said that, it still allows us, from a clinical perspective, for doctors to do teleconsultation or give advice and remotely monitor patients at their homes, etc. So yes, that gives us the benefit, and that has accelerated quite a bit. The other perspective is from an IT management standpoint. It gives us a lot of flexibility in being able to dynamically manage who connects to what and from where and how. So I think I feel that yes, it is giving us a lot of benefit from that perspective. But again, different industries might have different restrictions in terms of how they can use remote working.
I'll probably add to what Sreeni said, right? And essentially, Sreeni beautifully touched upon the technology aspect. I'll probably add in the flavor of security on it. So I think, again, I'm going to touch upon the remote working, and as Sreeni rightly pointed out, the cloud adoption being increasing, and more apps getting towards a commodity model, as in a SaaS model. I think what's happened was that bringing of a SASE type, infrastructure or methodology doesn't really, I don't think, gives me a better sleep at the night. What it does do, however, is it basically brings a more converged pane. So our ability to what traditionally we were always focused upon, let's say a SIEM like technology, which would essentially help us converge a lot of data points, a lot of technologies, and provide us some view of what's going around. Now, I think over the years, we have always heard the term that data is the new oil. And I think this is where SASE is getting an edge over the traditional cybersecurity technologies that we had seen in the past. So now it is not just the network or the traffic or the telemetry that we are seeing. There is capabilities in terms of DLP or CASPs, which kind of bring along in the SASE, which gives you more view from a data standpoint. So it's easier to put more fine-grained controls on what exactly you want to control from data aspect, I think, which was a little bit more difficult in the traditional technology. So I think that's the comfort and benefit that I see in my environment, and that's my observation. Thank you.
So coming on to you, Rajat sir, what would be your take on this?
I have some slightly different take on this. So we are a new age vertical SaaS company born and brought up in cloud completely. So for us, remote working and all those stuffs are like taken for granted. Like we have global workforce working throughout the globe remotely, where we have people in countries where there are like 10 people who are working from their home office, even before COVID hit us. See, from our perspective, SASE is actually doing a piece like if you talk about cloud. So cloud was it created an environment where like virtualization was put and managed from a single platform. Okay. Similarly, for SASE, I'll say like it's kind of a old wine into new bottle. Okay. ZTNA or CASB or network or convergence, everything was there well before SASE was invented. But yeah, it was like from different, like we implemented ZTNA in the year 2017. Okay. CASB was invented during the same amount of time as well. Okay. But the problem was like you had different vendors, different OEMs, different products, and you need to stitch around those stuffs to get a more holistic point of view and details about what is happening in your environment. With COVID and other stuffs, now people becoming more advanced and people becoming more, and employees are more demanding that, okay, they want to do work from home kind of a stuff and all. So VPN, work from home, everything was there earlier as well. But yeah, with SASE, like SASE is nothing but like you are stitching across multiple tools, which can like ZTNA, CASB, SD-WAN and all those stuffs into one single unified platform where you can have a holistic view what is happening inside your environment. And I think for us long ago that perimeter stuff was breached long ago in our industry, like in a SaaS world where like you can secure your data centers, your data, your servers and other stuffs. For us, the perimeter is my user, my endpoints. Okay, that is the new perimeter which is being defined. Gone are those days when you can like secure your data center, your servers, and you are sleeping tight in the night. No. Today, the security, what we believe is, has to be nearer to the data and users, not to somewhere where you are processing it. Okay. So my data, which is lying on my endpoints, are similarly critical than what is there in my databases, in my servers. Okay. So if my endpoint is breached, whatever we do in my server security, I have a full chance and full like there is an issue of compromise which is waiting. And as we all know, like you asked, like which is the best computer, secure computer and all. So it is just a matter of when, it is not how. Okay, we are all having that scenario that we are safe and secure. It is not, it is a myth. Everybody is breached. It's just a matter of time when we find it out. So when is the only keyword. So we need to be prepared for that stuff. Okay. So for us, SASE created that holistic view, which added to the seamless user experience for us. Okay. So irrespective whether you're working from a corporate office, from a branch office, from a remote office, from a lab, from your coffee shop, whatever, that is what moved us, or like it triggered us to move to a pure fledged SASE platform. I'm sure many of us were using VPN and other stuffs. ZTNA was there. You must be having some sort of CASB implemented if you're using cloud. So those things were already there, like different SD-WAN technologies must be there too, or MPLS technologies must be there to connect your branch offices. But the main problem was like, if you have old generation VPN and all, we were securing their endpoints, but the users were not happy because we were backhauling all the traffic back to our data centers and all, which was creating a lot of frustration in users. Their experience of what they're working locally in a corporate office to something what they're working remotely, hell and heaven difference. With SASE implemented, what happened is we now have reach, we now have capability throughout the globe to spin up our gateways, our POPs, so that the user gets connected to the nearest POP and have seamless connectivity to resources, whether in cloud or in our corporate environment, and have similar kind of user experience. Okay, whether you're sitting in a corporate office or working remotely in some remote office or home or cafe or something. So that is something for us. We already had many other stuff, but yeah, moving to SASE was triggered because we wanted to have a single unified solution where we can get the holistic view of what is happening, and plus our user experience can be seamless. It should not be like, okay, if you're working from US, you need to use these tools. If you're working from South Africa, you need to use these tools. No. So it's just like you switch on your system and you're good to go, irrespective.
If I'm not wrong, you want to say that it creates a it has been created to help CISOs to have a larger perspective related to security.
Correct. So what it did is earlier we were using like multiple tools, right? Like we have a CASB from XYZ OEM. We were having VPN solution, which was backhauling all our traffic to a corporate firewall, or we may have an ZTNA already that time. We will be having a web security from a third OEM. So what happens is it was not giving us a holistic view.
Yes.
And to stitch, and we all know like working and stitching different OEMs together so that they can interchange and talk to each other is not as something which is a dream job. It is like a painful stuff.
Okay. So Vijay sir, now question to you.
Thanks, Vinay. Thanks to Summit guys. My view on SASE is, for every industry, the way you take the journey towards SASE is different. Right? The cloud native, like my colleague Rajat said, they have a different perspective on what SASE means. Right? But there are companies like enterprises like Capgemini and the other large enterprises. They have been traditionally on-prem based solutions, right? They have everything on-prem. Cloud was something started journey about 4 or 5 years, being your collaboration and email, the first one to go onto the cloud. But there are tons of other applications which will be still seated in your on-prem location, which also has to gradually move. Now, what does SASE do for enterprises like us? It provides scalability. Right? I have employees working in multiple geographies. They expect the same user experience whether they are in India or in Netherlands or in Paris. Okay? And what it improves the user experience of the employees, that what they require at what speed they want, the application is delivered. And these kind of flexibility in the operations, visibility in what the network infrastructure is going to provide, right? All this can be done only if you have a SASE kind of framework. Now, in the earlier scenarios, you had everything in silos. We had CASB, we had ZTNA, we had SIEM, we had so many other technologies, but they were all never converged into in one place where I can get the complete visibility of security. I can get the complete visibility of how the data flow is happening. I can get the complete visibility how the network is functioning. Now, if there is some choke point, I should be dynamically able to provision the required services at the required place at the speed of what the employees required, right? This kind of flexible model is what SASE is going to provide to enterprises. And this is very critical for not only for IT service industry to multiple other industries, because the speed to market is very important. Now, if I take week, 10 days, 20 days to spin off a service, right? It's not going to work. As an employee, as a consumer, I expect these services, whether from insurance, whether from health, or whether from any other services, right? I want speed of delivery. When I access the application, I want it to be operational all the time. I can't sit and say click multiple steps to make it work, right? So that speed of delivery, speed of access, multi-regional support, right? Worldwide, better user experience worldwide to employees. All this is what SASE is going to provide to enterprises, right? But like I said, there are different ways people see it. It is just not one technology which is going to deliver. We will require multiple different technology from endpoint, from application to data to cloud. In different stages, we need to have architecture which is going to help employee experience better and the enterprises to deliver far more superior experience to consumers, customers, and employees. I'll take a pause.
Okay, so I think most of you have answered this question, but I need an elaborate answer where you can say that relevance of SASE when NAS and zero trust edge is already there. Where do you see? So if you can answer one by one. So I'll take a question from Sreeni sir first, and then Anuj sir, and then Rajat and Vijay sir, then you. If you can tell me relevance of SASE, because most of us are doing everything, but now SASE has come and how things are changing.
Thank you. And I think Rajat had touched on that quite succinctly there, because these technologies all existed in the past, and that's absolutely correct, either as network as a service or zero trust. And SASE kind of converges them together. If you look at the components within SASE, I mean, zero trust is very much part of that. So is the software-defined WAN or the SD-WAN, firewall as a service, secure web gateway, and CASB. Now, the combination of that is what brings in the value of SASE, right? So you could always have these services, network as a service, or zero trust from a different vendor, and many people are using it quite successfully and reaping the benefits of that. But the place where you end up having issues is that either if I look at it from a business point of view, it could be multiple teams handling this within the organization, in which case their focus is different, their objectives are different, and therefore you will not have the integration and a holistic view of how things are working across your network as well as your security piece. And that's where SASE comes in and bridges this gap. So short answer is that all these technologies have existed in the past. They are used quite extensively. However, the integration and the single pane view did not exist, which is what SASE brings in. You were referring to the Gartner research, Vinay, and when we look through that, it says that by around 2024 or 2025, I think, around 30% of company or enterprises would be using SASE from a single vendor, which means that a single vendor will be offering all of these SD-WAN, CASB and SWG and everything together as a package, compared to around 5% or 2%, which is today. So that's where we see them all converging and bringing in some value, even though they are a convergence of existing products. I will take a pause.
Yes, Anuj sir, if you can elaborate us on this.
So I was saying that SASE coming in and complementing and augmenting the network aspects, especially in my opinion, would be I've usually worked with service providers, and which would imply there is a multi-country and multi-regulatory and a typical, if you think from a architect standpoint, a hub and spoke architecture, which essentially we have of course seen dissolving over the years, and which usually is absolutely out. For instance, our friend from Zenoti, Rajat, said that they were always a SaaS, right? So they essentially had a ZTNA way long back. But then there have been more hybrid type environments which were not cloud native as such, like the industries we are in, and we are still making that journey. And I think that's where that convergence is coming, where you saw the traditional hub and spoke, and now you have a more cloud native architecture. And I can think of the days where we had the internet gateways and a VPN gateway, and so with that, as again our audience, other panelists said, Sreeni mentioned, Vijay mentioned, especially Vijay talked about the availability of the application, the ease of access, and I think some of these things now getting converged makes it a little more easy for both the technology owners and the user, because then you're not switching through so many things, you're not inspecting so many things. I can think of having certain environments which were more mature. So earlier in the organization, they were pyramids of capabilities. There would be certain offices which we would usually call as the headquarters or the shared centers, which would get a lot of investment, should get a lot of focus. But unfortunately, hackers knew that too, right? And the adversaries were also looking for, let's say, a marketing office, etc., which might not have had the best of breed technology or might not have received the latest updates. And I'm touching at the heart of the core of the issues, right? So essentially, I think something like a SASE brings that, all of that technology layer has been picked up and kind of virtualized in a way. So that capability is consistent, whether it's the endpoint, whether it's the app or it's the user. So for it, that kind of really goes and comes out. And I think in my mind, hence the access control, the threat prevention and the data protection controls, along with the detection, I think has become a little more converged, which kind of makes it easy while converging from a network standpoint. I'll take a pause. You're on mute, Vinay.
Rajat sir, because you were among first few players who went ahead and did everything. So what's your take on this? So it's...
See, I will say, like, I do understand SASE picked up slowly. It is not because of the technology or the maturity of the product. That definitely plays a role. People generally, companies or whoever, like we also waited for some time to let the offering be mature enough to put production load onto it. But my take was, like, there were already a lot of investments which have been made by companies in network as a service, or we have ZTNA also. Many people were using ZTNA by that time. People were already using different CASB solutions from different OEMs. So that is a lot of investment which has already, and all these investments are not small. They are generally multi-year contracts with the OEM. So if you see by the year 2025, and till now also, that the adoption of SASE increased multifolds is not just because of the maturity of the offering, but also like people do understand their renewals and all. That is probably is the best time to look out for technology revamps and all, rather than just wasting and losing out on the ROI which they have already done investments on. Okay, so that is one aspect of adoption in SASE which is gaining more popularity currently and will keep on doing so in next few years. Another thing which I like, which we stress mostly, is in today's world, and even more because of the pandemic, you never know of the future. You may have a vertical expansion and horizontal expansion suddenly, and you may have to drop down and close down suddenly on a minute's notice, right? Having SASE implemented gives you that leverage, and you can leverage those cloud output for both horizontal and vertical expansion. You can just imagine like going out into a new geography. I don't have to worry whether I'm hiring one user or we are hiring 100 users there on day one. It's just a matter of fact to have a nearest pop configured, which will happen in maybe a couple of minutes. And we are good to go. And my user experience, security, data sets, whatever Anuj said, like data extraction or my SIEM capabilities, my DLP, everything is available to my new Office Center users on day one, not even in day one, on day zero. So which gives a huge user experience boost, like they get the same experience which they are getting in a corporate office and also in a new geography where you are expanding.
So if I have to say, SASE security should be part of holistic security strategy of an organization.
Definitely, that is what I'm saying, because like SASE gives you that holistic view of the environment, what is happening inside your environment.
Okay. So Vijay sir, if I have to ask you this question, what's your take on this?
Right. See, SASE is something which is evolving faster than what we expected. Right. Even vendors, when they introduced or talked about SASE, they were not very clear on how it is going to fit to different enterprises and what kind of a issue for that customer it is going to resolve, right? Because it's just a term, it's a big architecture. Now, to make that work, the organization also has to go through a lot of change internally. They have to take care of their cost, what is already being deployed in the environment, right? They should not duplicate cost, and the vendor has to be extremely flexible in terms of providing the license management, so that customer moves from the existing architecture to a new SASE architecture, right? And then the skill set, which is very critical to understand from a command line way of working to a UI where it is policy driven, right? So we should have that, develop that skill set also, to ensure that when we migrate from older technology to newer technology, we have adequate people in place who can understand and see how the SASE can fit to the existing requirement and how I can safeguard the investment which I'm going to make for the next 2 to 5 years. Because it should not happen that next 2 years down the line, vendor comes, no SASE, it is some other new technology. It can't happen to enterprises, right? It's too much of a cost, too much of complication. You migrate to one technology and then you shift to another. It's not practical at all for an enterprise to work. So it's a gradual evolution from the existing one to a newer technology. As I said, skill set is critical, and then it is going to stay for some time. And large enterprises, medium enterprises, and cloud native companies are going to adopt this in even more faster way, because the new work model of work from anywhere is driving this SASE adoption, so that we get a uniform security, whether I am in corporate, in remote office, or working from anywhere, right? Uniform visibility of what is happening across the network, from endpoint to cloud, what data is accessing, right? And clear visibility to CISOs and key stakeholders that my enterprise is safe, or at least I get the visibility if there is an attack on the network. These visibilities were not so available in the earlier days because you had to culminate a lot of other devices for you to arrive or to take a decision on whether you are in attack or in a safe zone. So this SASE is going to provide that platform of visibility, which is very critical for the organization to know you are in a safe hand or you are being attacked, and then take necessary action. So this is my opinion on how the SASE is going to evolve and going to continue to evolve further.
So if I have to ask a very different question out of this conversation, I found, will this solve a resource crunch issue in
Not
industry?
really. It
If
is
you
going
can
to increase. It is going to increase because for every
Yes.
technology change, right? Unless the engineers or the employees who are also very curious to work and upskill themselves to be part of the entire SASE journey, it is going to have a trouble, right? And if there is already an employee, you have to get a new recruit done, it's going to be very expensive. So organizations are also looking at how I can upskill my existing team, existing employees who can understand what SASE is going to offer, and because it's a multiple vertical which the SASE brings in, right? One guy can't have expertise in everything. You need to have multiple skill set on different technology who become an SME for the technology, right? So that upskilling is a constant requirement which organizations are doing, and because they understood that you can't depend on one person when you go to cloud, right? And as it is multi-technology, you need multiple skills, multiple people who can understand. I may have a very good network expert, right? But he doesn't know anything on cloud-based security. It's not going to help me. Right? So upskilling is extremely important for an organization, and that continues the growth and continues to give confidence to employees and the organization. Yes, I have the required skill set. Yes, I can move further in the technology.
Okay. So, sir, Rajat, sir, what's your take on this? Will it be a good step forward that you will get more employment generated because of this new technology?
See, it's not about generating more employment. What I see is resources are of two types. Okay, one is at the back end where you are having your server infrastructure. Those are also your resources. Then you have your manpower who is managing them. Okay, and the third prong is what the users see it as a branding perspective. So as I already mentioned, from infra perspective, resource crunch will be the talk of the past. You will not have any dearth of resources even today or in future when you want to expand your business or reach out to a new market or tap new talent. You'll have no dearth of resources if you are moving to cloud. That is what cloud is. It's not just limited to SASE. That is in general what cloud gives you as a biggest advantage of any tar and mortar data centers and all, where even to add a server, you have to go through that huge pain of different bureaucratic process, purchase orders, deliveries, and all those stuffs. Okay, in cloud, you can expand on a click of a button. Okay, so that is one resource part which will take care. Another thing is the people who are the manpower who is managing them. Okay, so I have two takes on this. I do agree with Vijay when he says knowledge improvement or keeping the pace with the industry standards and making sure your team is learning or self-learning. It's a never-ending process. Okay, people have to be there if they want to stay in the industry. Okay, but I believe with the kind of exposure cloud gives and the kind of material and resources available on the internet, it's much easier to find someone who is cloud savvy than finding someone, say, who is a Cisco savvy guy or who knows how to configure a router. It's much easier to create a network in cloud if they have the basics done right. They don't have to worry about what is lying underneath. So earlier we used to manage, okay, I need a Cisco guy, I need a Aruba guy, I need XYZ guy, I need a Microsoft guy. Gone are those days. I'm not bothered what is there in my cloud underneath. I just need a network guy, a security guy who knows the stuff. Okay, who knows what SIEM is, who knows what security is. He is not going to manage any particular stream. Like, he is not bothered whether the underlying router or switching is or a firewall is a Cisco or some other brand or some other OEM. It's standard. Like, he should know how the routing happens, and cloud will give him that freedom that, okay, he can spin up, he can play around. Okay, and my another take is, like, with this kind of stuff, it also gives you a brand in, and to attract talent to join your company. That creates a brand image. We are seeing that in the industry. The today's Gen Y, X, or Gen Z, which is coming, like, they are more particular in choosing what company is using, what tools they're giving to their employees, what kind of experience they're giving to their end user. So I have seen that practically happening, where, like, people are ditching an offer and going to a company where, like, maybe pay scale is not a mandatory, but yeah, they're looking at what kind of tech tools employee have access to, what kind of experience they're going to, exposure they're going to get.
So Anuj sir, if you can.
So I will again take the view that I was talking about earlier, that it depends upon also the complexity of the organization itself. See, if you are a large enterprise who is almost, creating your own stack in line with the SASE principles, converging CASPs, SWGs, SD-WAN, and you're trying to manage it yourself, I think it can have an initial high amount of change management in terms of training people, in terms of skill, upskilling, and also the end user. But if you really are consuming some of these things in a managed services mode, then I feel like it really becomes a matter of operationalizing it, which my colleague already talked about, that, it's not as difficult to operationalize versus it. I think I'll keep it short on this one. I mean, I really feel like it, the answer varies depending upon what kind of adoption you're going for. So all in all, if you are using a managed service in terms of a SASE provider, you've got to be careful of how you can reuse investments so that there is little upskilling, but I feel like that's easier. But if you're doing a custom thing on your own, it can get complicated from a skill standpoint, especially in today's world. I take a pause here.
Sreeni sir, if you can point out few things here.
Yes. So thank you. Very good discussion. I mean, there are so many different points, and I myself am learning from this. So when I look at it from my industry perspective, so I will mirror some of the things that Rajat, that you mentioned in terms of investments and how those investments would be valid when you go towards SASE, and that is a real problem, because we have made investments that are huge. And are going to be in force for a certain period of time, and therefore those procurement cycles and those come into play when you look at adoption of SASE. From a skill set standpoint, similar to what Vijay said, that's a challenge that we face ourselves, because being a hospital, we have been quite conservative in our cloud adoption so far, which means most of our infrastructure is in-house in our data center, and then you're looking at people who are actually configuring routers and thinking at a very OEM level, versus what we are doing now, which is moving towards a cloud, and then you need a different skill set for that. And that is also compounded by the fact that each vendor or each product then comes with a learning curve in terms of being able to use that product. Even if you look at bits and pieces of SASE, then each of them comes with their own learning curve. So from my perspective, when I look at SASE, I see the convergence as a good thing for me, because while there is a learning curve, while there is learning to be done, if it is one converged set of solution, rather than me having workforce or vendor resources working on 5 different aspects of security and networking, if it is one product, one integrated solution, and I need to then invest in upskilling in that, that makes more sense to me than actually spreading out my my technology much further. So that's the way I would look at it.
So I was asking, the way technology is all evolving, where do you SASE is future ready or not?
Vinay, I think this is quite interesting to know whether what we are investing as an organization, is it future proof or not, right?
Yes.
So it's a very strategic decision, right? When you are looking at a new SASE or a ZT on any new technology, the minimum safeguard which an organization will look at is 5 to 7 years, whether this technology will exist for me, whether the investment which I made now, can it future proof the upcoming integrations or upcoming technology which can directly integrate with the SASE requirements, right? It is very important for us, for Capgemini or any other organization, to see that SASE is going to help me drive towards a certain direction which even the organization is required in terms of security, in terms of data protection, in terms of ease of use. So SASE, right now I would say that this is at a critical stage where organizations are adopting in a big way, and I'm expecting that more and more service offering will come from the vendor, and the focus will be around SASE for at least another 3 to 5 years. Then we might see a technology shift, but essentially the change should still be integrated with the SASE framework, right? Otherwise, changing technology very frequently is going to be a big nightmare for organization, right? So we do look at future proofing the investments what we have done, right? And we are hoping that this will continue for quite a long time till we find some new technology which is going to completely rip off what we have with a different name, right? So, but I strongly feel the current SASE is definitely future proofing the investments what is being done now and what is going to go for next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So Sreeni sir, if you can give your point of view here.
Okay, I will go then. Yeah, very good question, and like Vijay said, it's a difficult one to answer, because when you look at when you say future ready, look at it from two perspectives. One, in terms of where the technology is heading, and two, in terms of where my organization is heading. Right. So when I look at it from my organization perspective and what I want to do in the next 5 to 7 years, will SASE as a technology provide me with the networking and security stability that I want to achieve? And from that perspective, from a business growth standpoint, or from new areas that we want to get into, we are looking very heavily into IoT, putting medical devices in patients' houses, having more branches opening up in different countries and so on. So from that point, will SASE help us being able to adapt in a flexible manner into the future? Yes. So there I see from a business standpoint that SASE would be future-proof for me in terms of meeting my ambitions. From a technology perspective, like some of the panelists pointed out, it always changes. So cybersecurity as a landscape is ever evolving. Many times you see that the industry starts specializing into different areas, endpoint detection or into network intrusion detection. Then they all start converging and coming as a large product. Then again, you start evolving, moving around. So that is something which we will see happening in the future as well. So from an investment perspective, 5 to 7 years, like Vijay mentioned, is key, and we want to make sure that the investment is safe, both from a technology trend standpoint as well as from a business strategy. From where my business wants to be in 5 to 7 years, will the technology that I'm investing in stay relevant till that point? Even if you look at the growth of SASE and the trends that the industry predicts, it is expected to grow double by the next 5 years or so, from around 2.6 billion as the size of SASE today to around 5.6, if I'm not mistaken, by 2027. So which means the growth is there and it is ready for the future. But again, looking at it both from a business as well as a technology standpoint.
Okay. Anuj sir, if you can.
Sure. So I think very well points covered already. It's quite a crystal gazing question, isn't it? But that said, in my opinion, anytime I hear the word SASE, ZTNA, CASP, again, all of these technologies have existed for a long time. And I feel like they have survived quite a long journey. All of these components, so I'm going to try and address this a little differently. So I mean, all of these components, if you really see, are, let's say, a network protection or an endpoint protection, eventually, or like a proxy solution. So the question really goes back to very fundamental: that do we need these still? And to a great extent, I think we still need these. As we are shifting our consumption model towards more commodity, whether it is the cloud, whether it's an application as a SaaS service, I think some of these also will get commoditized and offloaded to an OEM or a provider as journey moves forward. So I think the technology itself is going to play a big role in terms of how it's going to shape up in the future. But that said, at the core, do we need these controls? The answer is a clear yes. Do we need these components to protect ourselves? Again, in my opinion, the answer is yes. It probably is going to pivot in the future, whether who's going to own it. It's like a shared responsibility model in the crowd. I feel like something like that's going to evolve in the future to come, and we'll see where it goes. That's it for me.
Okay. Rajat sir, if you can.
Yeah. So yeah, as everybody else of my friends said, like any technology which we invest in, we do TCO and ROI for next 5 to 7 years to make sure that we can reap out the benefits of our investment, and money wise, not only money wise, but manpower wise as well. So that being said, like honestly, from a personal perspective, the way the technology paradigm changes every few days, like I just look at a technology on a yearly basis, like what exactly it is going to do after a year. Because honestly, like if today a SASE is a bouquet of 4 or 5 different services, I'm sure it may get involve some other components in future, will add into that bouquet and make it like 6, 7 services in the future. And like whether it is future proof, my opinion is nothing is future proof in today's world. So you cannot say we are future ready or future proof. You never know what is in store in future, right? So that is what we believe in. So we take a very strategic step of like yearly defining our technology roadmap, rather than we take a longer period for our TCO and ROI calculation. Okay. Now, whether SASE will stay, yes, it will stay. It may happen like, okay, one OEM may lag behind, so his loss or their loss, maybe other OEMs gain. Whoever keeps the pace with the market and add technology advancement in their offering will gain the market share, is what the difference will be. But as a technology perspective, like SASE will be there for at least next 5 to 7 years. It is not going to move away.
If you can give one pointers on how SASE would change the industry perspective in future, 1 or 2 points from each one of you, then I'll conclude the session. Rajat sir, you can start with.
Sure. So for us, from my point of view, seamless user experience and easy rollout and expandability is the key thing.
Okay. Anuj sir.
I would talk about a simplified pane of management, ease of overall accessibility towards what's happening from a telemetry standpoint, and especially a simple proxy-based cloud IPS, zero trust ready kind of architecture is some things that are going to be the outlook for me. Thank you.
Okay, Vijay sir.
I would say improved user experience, dynamically scalable environment, and provide better security to the organization.
Okay, yeah, Sreeni sir.
Yeah, pretty much similar. I would say a single pane of view in terms of networking and security, and flexibility and scalability. But to that, I will also add from an organization perspective, I'm quite excited that this will let my networking and security team collaborate and work together, because you will have within the organization a marriage of those groups rather than them being separate and conflicting requirements at times. So looking forward to that.
Okay, so if I have to say, I have to for a conclusion, I understood that if we have to use a SASE, this will help an organization, because will make a holistic strategy. And if I could understand from the conversation, SASE is neither a new market or technology nor a product, but rather an integration of existing technology. So if anyone of you differ from this, you can suggest some other thing if I'm wrong anywhere. Do you agree with me on this? It's neither a new technology nor a new product. It's a integration of most of the products. What do you say?
I agree. As I told in my initial opening
Yes.
remarks, like it's an old wine in new bottle. So,
Yes.
Yeah, I
So
agree. It's evolving technology.
Yes.
Customers and vendors are also looking at how this can be taken to a next level. But yes, I agree to your point.
Thank you. Thank you, each one of you, for taking out time for this discussion. And actually, I learned many of things over here with you all, from you all, the knowledge you have from the industry, because you are the one who are doing everything. We are the one who are just strategizing things with you all. So thank you, each one of you, and looking forward to meeting you all at the conference and award. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.